What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we finish our talks on the Lunar Sorcerer, one of the newest additions to not only the Sorcerer, but also just Dungeons & Dragons in general, and this is an exciting one, right? It ranked okay back on Tuesday. I'll put that up in the iCard above. And now we get to make it work just a little bit better and see how it works in application. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to share the video with your friends and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. One of the best ways to support this channel, of course, is by becoming a member. At the lowest tier, by clicking that little join button down below, you of course will get a copy of a write-up for this build and all of my other builds, as well as write-ups for all of my subclass fixes. And that is a nice way of me giving back to the community and helping you all out. You can bring that to your table, show it to your DM, use it as a PC or even an NPC in your game if you're running one. So anything like that, it really helps out. And of course, it helps me doing what I do. And of course, if you go to higher tiers, such as the silver or gold tiers, you're going to get a few more extra things. At the silver tier, you're going to get a special shout out during the video. And of course, you are going to get videos 24 hours early, which is a nice perk. And of course, at the gold tier, we are developing things as well, but you will get access to specific parts of my Discord server, help me to determine different video topics, that kind of thing. And it's actually going to have some other things coming very soon once I get all the kinks worked out there. So yeah, make sure to check that out. Of course, I always appreciate that support, but all of you who are here just watching, I appreciate you as well. So let's take a look at what we're doing today. So yeah, back on Tuesday, I think that we found that this was a decent enough subclass. I don't think it's bad by any means, but I do think that it could use a few things that help it out. Not being able to customize your spell list is a little rough. Although you get a lot of spells, you double your known spells, which is nice, but you don't get to swap those out with other options. And with that, it makes it a little bit more restrictive, considering that a lot of these options aren't really ones that I would normally have gone for. And so they just kind of sit there and are really hardly ever going to get used, if ever. So that's a tough thing, but most of the other features are actually not that bad, and it makes it a decent subclass. So I'm excited to be able to build with it. I think you all will like how I go about building it. One thing to keep in mind is that this is an incredibly customizable subclass because of the 3 different moon phases. And so you can choose to focus on one of them and it be a different one than what I'm choosing to focus on today, and that be just as valid. So definitely explore those options and let me know down in the comments below what mode you would prefer to go with overall. And if I'm going with one that you think is better, if you think that there's one that is better or worse than what I'm looking at, I'd love to know down below. Before we start, of course, here are the rules for the series if you haven't seen this before. And so there's your stat array, there is how we do multi-classing, that kind of thing. We really aren't going to do very much multi-classing at all, so I'm not too worried about that. This really honestly works best just as a single class type of build, but I wanted to throw one level elsewhere in order to just have more of a flavor pick, and you'll see what I mean when we get to it. But yeah, it's not going to be anything too crazy there. We're going to start off though with our race as always, and I wanted to keep kind of a theme when I made this build. I don't do a lot of theme type builds. Most of them are just focused on the mechanics, but with this one I wanted to go more of a theme, and that is more of a moon space-ish theme. So I wanted to take something that was from Spelljammer. Now, of course, if you can't use Spelljammer at your table, that's totally fine. I've got options at the very end of the video in the honorable mentions that you can look at there as well. And of course, timestamps down below if you need to skip to that. What we're going to go with actually is the Astral Elf. Now, elves work well with this class and subclass, which is pretty cool, but the Astral Elf, of course, is from space, which makes this a really, really cool bring. It also gets some really cool stuff, right? We get Astral Fire, which, yes, could be considered to be slightly redundant with Moonfire that we get by being a sorcerer, but this just gives you another option of a light themed or flame themed cantrip that you can get. So basically just don't pick Sacred Flame, but either of the other two are totally fine. Either way is good. We've got Dark Vision, we get Fey Ancestry, Keen Senses, and we get Astral Trance, you know, just the standard elf stuff, which is really cool, but it's mainly for flavor. honestly, and I think that works out really well. Next up, for our stats, of course, using the modified standard array you saw earlier. If your table is using a different type of way of doing stats, then yours will look a little different. Just adjust accordingly based on what is highest to lowest. For our top stat, we're going to go, of course, with Charisma. Big shocker there. Next up, Constitution, and then Wisdom. We need at least a 13 Wisdom, so make sure that you have that. We've got a 12 Dexterity, and then really the rest don't matter. We're not using Strength really for anything. We're not using Intelligence really for anything. And of course, you get either a +2 and a +1 to any of your stats, or you can do 3 different +1s. I'm going to go with the 3 +1s and just shore up each of those odd stats, and so that is how those will look. For our equipment, of course, we will need Arcane Focus, or if you're wanting to use components or whatever it happens to be, you can do that. As far as armor goes, we are going to get proficiency with heavy armor, but we are not going to meet the strength requirement. So with that in mind, it is optional if you want to do heavy armor. You will have proficiency, so you can still cast your spells and all that good stuff once you get it, but you will have a limited movement speed. So it is something to consider if you want to do it that way. If you think it's worth it, by all means go for it. If not, then it's fine. I'm going to personally use it, but you don't necessarily have to. It is completely optional. It is just going to help us out in our otherwise very poor armor class, and so I want that little bit of help there. Level 1, we are going to start off with Sorcerer. I know I normally start off with other classes, but I want the Constitution saving throw proficiencies, and yeah, that's where Sorcerer comes into play. So for level 1, we're going to be pretty frail, and we're going to be easy to take down, so you'll want to stick to the back of the fights and not really get in there until we can shore up our defenses just a little bit more. But we get Spellcasting, Lunar Embodiment, and Moonfire. Like I said, with Moonfire, we're going to get Sacred Flame here, which can be twinned, which is pretty cool. And so don't take that with the Astral Fire, but either way, that's cool. Lunar Embodiment is what gives us all these spells, which is really nice. Of course, you cannot switch those out, but you do get all 3 across the board. So getting Shield for free, that's a really good one, right? I'm all about that. And of course, for spellcasting, right? For our cantrips, we're gonna get things like, of course, Sacred Flame comes free. We get Mage Hand, Message, and then I'm going to focus specifically on more of the enchantment spells, because I think that I want to go ahead and start focusing down on a specific moon phase for once we do eventually get our feature that allows us to reduce cost on our different meta magic options, the lunar boons that we'll get at level 6. So I want to go ahead and make sure I'm focusing in on that, because I'm going to be focusing on the enchantment school. So Mind Sliver and Chill Touch are going to be my go-to options for cantrips there, but again, if there's something else you want, by all means go for it. Then at first level, of course, we're going to get Shield, Ray of Sickness, and Color Spray for free, which is great. Shield is great anyway. The other two are right? Color Spray is meh. It's fine right now, but it doesn't scale well. And Ray of Sickness is okay, I guess, now, but again, it doesn't scale well. It doesn't work well, so I'd probably just focus on Shield for now. And then Charm Person and Silvery Barbs are going to be my other 2 options. You could always do something like Absorb Elements if you wanted to. There's plenty of first level spells that you can take here that are really nice. You may want something that is a little bit more consistent with dealing damage, like a Firebolt over Sacred Flame, but that's up to you. At level 2, we're going to go ahead and multi-class, and we're going to again look to kind of the moon, kind of the stars. Sort of, right? We're gonna go with the Twilight Cleric. The Twilight Cleric is kind of like that. Sort of, sure, yeah, it definitely is. If it fits the theme, it's great. But yeah, the Twilight Cleric, of course, is an amazing cleric option. We covered it up in the icon above right there if you want to check that out. And it gets a lot of really cool stuff. It talks about nighttime all the time, so as far as I'm concerned, this is night or moon themed, and we will take that. So we get spell casting, which we'll come back to. We get bonus proficiencies, which is what gives us. We get weapon proficiencies. I'm not worried about using a weapon, so don't worry about it. But we do get the heavy armor proficiency, which I'm going to take, and of course we are going to work up to full plate if we can eventually, once we can afford it, but just get what you can for now. And then Eyes of Night, which is great. We get super dark vision that we can of course share, and Vigilant Blessing, which is a huge one because that is going to give us a huge bump to initiative. And given our poor dexterity, that'll help out quite a bit because we're going to want to be able to get in position for our support role. Again, we're not really a blaster this week. We're more of a support role, and I think that that's really important to know now rather than going into this thinking, oh, I'm going to be, bringing down the power of the moon. This subclass is not catered to that, right? We don't get any kind of boosts to our evocation magic, and that really hurts us a lot, right? Now, there are plenty of spells that deal damage and do all kinds of things that are not evocation, but a lot of the good ones are. And so you've got to really think about that. And I'm not really going to be focusing on dealing damage. I'm going to be focusing on supporting my allies and making sure that they are dealing as much damage as possible and keeping them alive, which is really good. So for first level spells, of course, on this list, we're not going to have that great of a wisdom. So I would not focus on things that require saving throws or on things that require attack rolls. Bless is the perfect first spell to think about here, because that's just a passive buff to you and your friends, or just your friends, or however you want to do it. It's a great spell to focus on, to concentrate on throughout pretty much your entire career. It's just fantastic the whole way through. We get Cure Wounds, which is a nice one, and Healing Word for a nice little pick-me-up if you need that. We got Fairy Fire and Sleep for free. Sleep, of course, is one of those spells that works great right now. And once you get a few levels under your belt, you're never going to use it again because it just doesn't have enough HP there. So use it now if you want to, but you won't be using it for a terribly long time. At level 3, we're going to be back to Sorcerer, and we are going to be there for the rest of the way. Sorcerer 2, we are going to get Font of Magic, which gives us our sorcery points. Of course, we don't have anything to spend on them just yet, but you can convert them to spell slots, which is nice. But we're not really too concerned about that until we get to Sorcerer 3. Sorcerer 3 is where we get our meta magic options, which is great. I personally want to go with a couple of options that are going to be, at least for now, normally 1 sorcery point. One of them is going to always be sorcery point, the other one is going to scale, but of course the price will be going down by 1 once we get Lunar Boons at Sorcerer 6. I'm going to go with Subtle and Twinned here. I know that I've not really been the biggest advocate for Subtle Spell in the past, and I think that Subtle Spell can be a little situational, but honestly, I see this as a character that is just kind of too lazy to do verbal and somatic components and just wants it to just happen, right? And so I think that can be a really fun way of going about this. And so it's going to be for free a few times per day. So technically there's a cost, right? But if anything, it's just going to expand the number of sorcery points that you have by your proficiency bonus, which I really like once we get to that point. And of course, Twinned is great as well. That is going to scale with the spell level, but could be free if you use it on a first level spell or a cantrip, which is really good. We already get it twinned in a limited basis with Sacred Flame, but there are plenty of spells that we're going to get access to, such as like Chill Touch, which could be a really nice one that would be for free in order to twin, and I like that a lot. We do get second level spells at this point, and we get Lesser Restoration, Blindness, Deafness, and Alter Self for free here, which those aren't terrible. I've definitely had Blindness, Deafness work out before, especially if there's a creature you have to be able to see or something like that, or just by giving advantage on attack rolls into a said creature because that creature is considered blind. That can be really nice. Alter Self can be good in certain situations, so I don't necessarily hate all of these spells. They're just somewhat situational, but Crown of Madness, Hold Person, and Wither and Bloom are pretty good. I'm a pretty big Wither and Bloom advocate. I don't think it's the worst spell out there, but definitely not one that you would necessarily spam. Sorcerer 4, we are going to get our first ASI or feat, and I'm just going to bump my charisma. Why not? I think that that's the most important thing that we can do at this point, so that is what we are going to do. No feat is going to be more important than that right now. Sorcerer 5, we get Magical Guidance, which just allows us to re-roll a roll, which is fine, right? It's another cost to our sorcery points, but we're getting several sorcery points for free, so I'm going to be a lot less shy on using this, so that can be really, really helpful. We also get third level spells, and so we get Dispel Magic, Vampiric Touch, and Phantom Steed for free. Phantom Steed is an interesting one, right? Because if we're using heavy armor, then being on a horse helps to get rid of our speed disadvantage. So that could be an interesting option. So honestly, Phantom Steed works well on this, and that's kind of why I went this route of, even though I don't have the strength requirement met, I could just have a horse. And you could have the horse look like stars, maybe, if you wanted to, instead of a ghost. I don't know, talk to your GM. I think that'd be fun. Don't use Vampiric Touch, because that spell sucks. We also have things like Slow, Hypnotic Pattern, and Incite Greed, which could all be nice. Incite Greed is an underrated spell, in my opinion, and definitely could work well here. And next up, Sorcerer 6, the level we have been waiting for. We get Lunar Boons and Waxing and Waning. Lunar Boons is great, and this is what gives us that discount I've been talking about the entire time, and it's nice. It's great. So we're, of course, going to focus on enchantment spells and necromancy, but I'm not as concerned about the necromancy type of stuff. I'm more concerned about worrying about enchantment, just because that spell list is a lot wider for us as a sorcerer. And so that's kind of my focus in that way. But Waxing and Waning is nice because that means that we can swap between them a lot more easily. And that helps out a lot, right? Especially if we are able to cast one of these spells for free, at least in the first level slot. That allows us to get over there to prepare a shield coming in, and that will help us out quite a bit. So definitely a really, really nice option there. Next up, we hit Sorcerer 7, and of course this is where we kind of begin the speed round when it comes to all this, because we're just going to be listing spells every other level. So we're going to go through these next levels pretty quickly, because we're not really changing a whole lot about how it plays. We're just getting a lot of new spells, and I'll mention anything of note as we go through it. Sorcerer 7, we get 4th level spells, and so we get Death Ward, Confusion, and Hallucinatory Terrain. I'm not worried about really any of those, honestly. They're whatever. Banishment, Charm Monster, Dominate Beast, and Polymorph are all my standout options. Again, focusing on Enchantment School, and then Polymorph is Polymorph. Sorcerer 8, we are going to get another ASI feat. I'm going to go with Warcaster in order to further boost our concentration checks and give us a better option when making an opportunity attack as a spell rather than necessarily a weapon, which we don't have. Sorcerer 9, we of course get 5th level spells. Rarest Telepathic Bond, Hold Monster, and Mislead are all of our options there. Those are fine. Hold Monster is of course a huge standout. The others are okay. Dominate Monster and Synaptic Static, which is an enchantment spell, which is strange to me. But yeah, those are both great, and so definitely consider those. Sorcerer 10, we get another meta magic option, and Quickened is going to be my main choice here. Now this is normally a cost of 2 sorcery points, but of course we could reduce it down to 1 if it fits within the school that we are focusing on. Sorcerer 11, we are going to get 6th level spells. Mass Suggestion is really the only one that I'm going to focus on that list, but there are some other options if you would like to look over those. Sorcerer 12, we get another ASI feat. I'm going to bump Constitution, and that's going to be nice for both our concentration checks and for our health. Sorcerer 13, we get no features, but we get 7th level spells. Finger of Death and Power Word Pain are both really, really cool. I think it's funny that we can just kind of for free do Power Word Pain with no words. Power Pain, pretty much. I like it. Sorcerer 14, we get Lunar Empowerment, which gives us 3 awesome features, 1 per moon phase. And this makes that a lot more difficult in choosing which one you want, because a lot of them are going to be pretty powerful. I personally am going to stick with where I was before, because again, we are going to be invisible in darkness, which is great. We have dark vision, and if somebody else is working on dark vision to see us, doesn't matter, you still have disadvantage, which is pretty cool. I like that. I like that a lot. That's really good. We get Sorcerer 15, 8th level spells, Dominate Monster, and Power Word Stun is there. Again, Power Stun because we don't have to have words. And then Sorcerer 16, we're going to get another ASI feat, bump Constitution one more time because why not? And then Sorcerer 17, we get another meta magic option. I honestly don't have any others that I want. I think the 3 that I've picked so far are really the only ones that I care about. So pick your favorite right there. I'm not gonna give a specific one. I think they're all fine there. And we also get 9th level spells. Power Word Kill or Power Kill is right there. Why would you not take that? And then of course there's also Wish and Mass Polymorph as standout options. Sorcerer 18, we get our final subclass feature with Lunar Phenomenon. Again, similar to what we got last time with Lunar Empowerment, just another nice ability associated with each of the moon phases. Here is really where I would consider swapping things around if I want to, but besides this, I'm probably going to just lock into this phase, and then if I need to grab Shield, I can swap over, but otherwise, I'm just going to stick around using the enchantment spells. And then finally, Sorcerer 19, level 20, we're going to get the tough feat just to make ourselves a little bit bulkier. So what do you think? of this week's build? Let me know down below. I think it's a lot of fun, right? It's on the simple side. There's nothing too crazy going on here, but I think it's a lot of fun. The addition of Twilight Cleric is going to help you out quite a bit in being a support character, because you don't necessarily have to give yourself the Vigilant Blessing. You can give it to someone else, and of course you can share the Dark Vision, and so you're a real team player with this, and I like that a lot. Having Bless online a lot is going to be great, especially as a sorcerer who's wearing armor, which is great, on a horse, which I think is just super cool. So definitely explore all of those options. I think those are great. For our honorable mentions, we're going to start with other class and subclass options, and honestly, I would look at something like the Moon Cleric. Now, this has to be allowed at your table. This is technically homebrew, but it is by Matthew Mercer. We covered it on the channel a while back. That is up in the icon above right there if you want to see that. We ranked it and did a build around it as well, so make sure to check that out. But it's really cool, and of course the theme of Lunar Sorcerer and Moon Cleric, that all works together there, so definitely check that one out if you haven't already. And the Order Cleric as well is really nice there. Of course, another really nice support option. We used it last week actually, so I didn't want to use it again. Check that out if you are interested in Order Cleric mixed up with the Sorcerer. And of course, you know, the standards also are great here too. Paladin and Warlock. There's a lot of options that would work well here. The Warlock especially is going to be nice because we could, if we wanted to, run the Darkness strat that works really, really well. That of course is done by grabbing the Darkness spell and Devil's Sight so that you can see in magical darkness that you set. And so that way you can bring darkness wherever you want. It could be a bright sunny day and you can make darkness, and then even if some other creature for some reason could see in magical darkness, you still have attacks incoming at disadvantage. So that's pretty cool. I think that's awesome. Speaking of darkness, for our other feat options, Shadow Touched is a really nice option. Again, giving us access to the darkness spell, which could be really good. Now, if you don't have Devil's Sight, you can't see in it just as much as anybody else can't either. So definitely you are going to want to pick that up either through feat or through multi-classing, however you want to do that. But yeah, definitely a really cool option there. And Metamagic Adept is another one, just to give us some more free sorcery points, and you can never have enough. You can never have enough. It allows it to be a lot more spammable, especially even with the boost that we get in this subclass. For our other race choices, I think the Mountain Dwarf is another option. We've explored that recently as well, and that is going to, of course, not take you down in speed by wearing heavy armor. Now, in fairness, the Mountain Dwarf is a little bit slower than most other races. It's 25 feet move speed rather than 30, but you know, you're only losing 5 feet in that way rather than 10, so it ends up working out. And Mountain Dwarf also gets 2+2s to its stats, which is really valuable as well. And then honestly, any elven race. The other two standouts for me are the Eladrin or the Pallid Elf. Those both work really well. You could also go with like a Sea Elf, which could be cool because of how the moon affects the tides and that kind of thing. I think there's a story to be told with that as well. So definitely check all of that out. I think that you could have a really fun story there. So that is our video for today. Next week, we cover a fan favorite, the Shadow Sorcerer. I hope you all are looking forward to that, and I know I am looking forward to covering it. Until then, I hope you guys have a great day. Make sure to check out tomorrow's video as we go into week 2 of the UNPL Spring Fling. I am very much looking forward to that and our future battles as that goes. I put a lot of effort into those videos, so make sure to check that out. And of course, until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.